Hey there, thanks for joining me. So today I would like to do a 2024 wrap-up video here, a little bit late, and just cover the hobby progress that I made during last year. Um, my goals, I think originally, had been to start this channel and use it as an excuse to just chronicle my painting of my huge pile of shame. And I wanted to really pare that pile of shame down, slay the gray, whatever you want to call it, and not add anything new to my pile until I had painted things that are already that I already have. And I failed at that spectacularly this year because this was the year of 3D printing for me. You can easily tell some of these things here have been 3D printed because they haven't even been primed, but some of these things that have been primed have also been 3D printed. So we'll talk about some of these things in more depth. I also did some recasting this year, which was very, very interesting. So let's get started just going over this little show and tell that I'm going to do. Let's start with these, perhaps. What I have in the front here is a lot of zombie and zombie adjacent miniatures. And these are not for any specific game. A lot of these come from Wargaming Foundry, which I believe is a UK company. I believe it has ties to Games Workshop, kind of like old Games Workshop, but I don't know the details really. Mostly what I know is that if I, in the past, quite a long time ago, if I wanted miniatures that were more modern and urban, they had some really cool stuff. I love this chainsaw zombie here. This is reminds me very much of a enemy type from Resident Evil 5. That's how I intend to paint it up. That's what I intend to play it as for the most part. I have zombie strippers. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie. It's very funny. Kind of disgusting, as you would expect. I really enjoyed that in the past. And you just have like an assortment of cool zombies. Police officers, these are kind of spoofing on Police Academy. Various survivors, guy with baseball bat, dude with Molotov, zombie nurse, zombie patients, zombie soldiers, which are super cool. I really like these miniatures, and I'm really glad that I've had the chance to get them all glued to bases. They've all been primed white. They all have their weapons painted silver. These, I think, are going to be great in things like Last Days, Zombie Apocalypse. This is by Ash Barker, who I believe he runs a YouTube channel. Is it Mini Wargaming? I would feel bad if I was wrong about that. I'll check it out and look it up. But anyway, it's published by Osprey Games. I don't actually have this particular book. This is Seasons. I think it might be some expansion or something like that. But I have the base book, and yeah, this is the kind of thing I could play those miniatures with. And they would make good proxies for the Resident Evil tabletop games that I also have. What I have here are some of my recasts that I did this year. And I feel like this was just something I did for fun for myself. Because, I used to be into Games Workshop and Space Hulk in particular. Chaos Space Marines didn't actually exist at that time. What you had was Chaos Renegades, and that's what these are. I guess that they are kind of like Space Marines, right? So you can see a little clearer. Basically, what I found on eBay was, kind of one of these like Slaanesh style Chaos Renegades that was for heavy weapons. And they didn't have a backpack, and they didn't have any of the heavy weapons with it. And same thing, like I found one of these, it's like a Demonette style Chaos Renegade with like Demonette head, I think is what it's called. And they just have like a bolt pistol, something like that. Also didn't have backpacks, but what I was able to find is some really cool old style backpacks that these renegades used, and a really cool set of heavy weapons. Now, I did have to scale these just slightly, a couple of them, a little bit to like fit just a little better in the hands of these miniatures. But I just loved the idea that I could have a little set right here, a little, I don't know what you call it, a squad of, of old Hammer renegades. I do have a, I think it's a second edition. It's basically, I think it's the first Chaos Codex. So it has like rules and stuff. I think for these kind of models, or maybe it's more just like, I think that was more when like Chaos was starting to look a little bit more like it does now, right? Where it actually had a codex. These might not have had a codex. I'm not sure exactly like how they fit into the rule system. But anyway, I think I can proxy these in for a little like Chaos Marine force, and I just think that that's pretty sweet. Also, I've been experimenting with like printing out some just some more modern-ish Space Marines. I think that old codex has rules for a Chaos Sorcerer, and I've looked at those Chaos Sorcerer models. I think they're really cool, but I also found this one, which is, the price was right, and it's a really cool like proxy Space Marine Sorcerer, and I was like, hey, that's cool. This is like another Chaos heavy weapon. It's actually scaled a bit large, and especially when like compared with these, and I already have all of these heavy weapons. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to keep or paint this mini, but that's another thing that's kind of nice about 3D printing is, if you print something out and you're like, that's not really what I like, you can kind of toss it in the trash. Just above there, this is kind of my Warcry band area here. So these are models. I didn't purchase these last year. These I've had for a while. They're like, I think all warbands that from Warhammer Underworlds. They do a really good job of basically bringing in the warbands from Underworlds into Warcry. And I just thought that that was cool because the Underworlds miniatures are excellent. I think they're just some of the best sculpts for Age of Sigmar that aren't really part of Age of Sigmar, but they are. I have this vampire warband here. I think it's 4 vampires. And I got all of these primed, silver on their weapons, ready to go. Behind this, we have like, I forget what they're called, but it's like a band of barbarians, essentially. They're really cool looking. Behind them is, Slaves to Darkness. A really cool little Slaves to Darkness warband. This is like a custom one that somebody made, who they just sort of threw it into the warband when I bought it on eBay. Another thing that I really like about these, and one of the reasons why I was excited, because I feel like these are really multi-purpose models for me, is that I do want to do some general like dungeon diving, miniature agnostic tabletop wargaming, right? And these really fit into that as like generic enemies, right? You get attacked by vampires, you get attacked by barbarians, you get attacked by warriors of darkness, you get attacked by beastmen. It works really well, I think, like that. So these beastmen, I think, are really cool. Probably maybe the only beastmen I'm ever gonna get. I don't know. But again, like the underworld sculpts are just great, and I like this this warband. Behind them, probably the hardest to see, are some ghouls. Because I have a soft spot for zombies, strangely, I'm not like so into Nurgle, really, which I think is kind of the zombie equivalent of like 40k, but I actually really kind of dig the ghouls. I don't know that I want to build an army of ghouls. I just kind of wanted some ghouls for my random dungeon diving and for Warcry. So I have that set. They're really nice. Okay, so let's take a look at these guys up here. These are all for a game called Tales from the Red Dragon Inn. Red Dragon Inn is I think kind of a card-based game. They made an offshoot of Red Dragon Inn, which is Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, which is a dungeon crawler, which seems amazing. I have tried this out solo, and yeah, it was fun. This, I think, what I really want for this is something that has a rule set that is kind of straightforward enough that I could play with like my nephews. I could play with my buddies, you know, if we just wanted to like I mean, I'm going to try to get together with some folks next weekend, and this is probably going to be my number one suggestion of, hey, do you guys just want to like, you know, try out one or two missions of this dungeon crawler? Like the rules are fairly straightforward and you know, and fun, and I think it's going to be interesting. Now, the thing with these is that you get these miniatures here. One, two, three, four, five, six. That might be all of them. There might be more somewhere I just didn't find. But I think it's like probably maybe just these 6 heroes. The rest of what you get are standees. And that's totally fine. In fact, I think it's great because what it means is like that they were able to include a whole bunch of different enemies. But me having a 3D printer was like, forget that. Let me 3D print out these enemies instead of using these silly standees. So so I printed out enemies for just the first chapter. I forget how many missions that is. It's like a handful. And yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with the game, you might be able to see back here. These are actually like, I think these are like orc mechs or something like that, that I just shrunk down a whole lot. There's a little engine thing. It's like a spark engine or something in one of the missions. There's blobs, there's these bug dudes, there's this big iron golem kind of thing, there's these plant things, enemies, and there's a handful more of that kind of stuff over here, which you know, I'll just point out when we get to it. But yeah, you know, I spent about $10 in commercial STLs, and then whatever I used in printing resin. And you know, I realized if I want to have options, you know, there's a lot of free stuff out there, so most of the stuff is free. But sometimes, like, I'm just like, oh man, I want something that really fits with the mission and the world that you have in the Red Dragon Inn. I might want to spend, you know, a little bit on these STLs. It's going to inflate the price of the game. So, you know, we'll see. I think what I'm going to do is just stick with these ones that I did for the first chapter. And if I end up playing the first chapter with people and they want to keep playing, I'll print out some more miniatures and I'll get some cool enemies for the later chapters. And if not, maybe I'll never do that, right? You can see here a bit of a spicy model here. This is actually Morrigan from Darkstalkers. You know, it was just one of those things where I was browsing STLs and I got into a little bit of a spicy section, and I was like, I really like that Morrigan figure. And, you know, I'm like, do I really want to print out a dude figure and paint it as, you know, part of my hobby projects here? And I was like, you know what? I do. I'm an adult and I can do what I want, and that's what I want to do. So yeah, I got this STL and printed it out. It worked out very nicely. So I hollowed the skull, which, you know, I feel like I'm getting pretty comfortable with doing things like that, like hollowing a model if I want to save on a little bit of resin, that kind of thing. So that worked well. This is all solid, and she does have a head with hair and wings and arms. They are just in a little container, and I haven't like glued them on yet. I think with those I might need to do a little bit of work to them, and also like it's gonna obscure parts of the model, so I think I want to do some painting in sub assemblies, you know, you would call basically. But yeah, you know, I think this is actually going to be just a fun painting project for me, right? And also is quite economical. I think this STL was like $7, and then I think it was probably about another $7 in printed resin. So for like $14, right? I get this nice resin figure that you know, hopefully is going to be painted really nicely, and that's the kind of figurine, you know, if this were in plastic or resin and pre-painted, it could run anywhere from $40 to $200 or $300, right? And I'm gonna be able to have gotten this for you know, 14 bucks and a, you know, a hobby project. I'm going to put some time into it. But I think that's going to be fun. Now down here we have some more underworlds warbands. These are Skaven. I forget what this warband is called. It's just these 4 Skaven. They're so cool. They're just super cool. I have another warband for underworlds. It's like Skavix Plague Pack or something like that. It's Plague Monks, right? And, you know, unfortunately, like, this isn't all of my stuff, right? I do still have a few things in boxes that need to be built, and they also need to be primed and readied. But I got so much of this stuff assembled, primed, ready to go. These are more clan rats. You guys probably saw my video where I painted the clan rats. I think those came out really well. And these are just some that mostly were like test models that I'm just like, okay, I'm going to prime over these and then I'm going to paint them. I have realized that when you, like, speed paints are really vulnerable to water. or basically just to being cleaned off. So instead of priming over top of speed paints, which is not so good because you can also see here because they react with water, they tend to bleed through your you know, your reprime. What I'll do in the future is I will strip them and then paint them. But you know, I had to kind of go through this process to realize that. So yeah, I think these will probably paint up fine as is. Next, let's go up here. So this is some more stuff for Tales from the Red Dragon Inn. You can see this is terrain-ish. I don't know. I guess this counts as terrain. A bunch of doors. But again, what I like is that doors are something that you're going to use on anything. If I want to play some Hero Quest or something like that, I could probably use these doors for that. I have some pillars. You know, again, pillars could be a pretty generic terrain piece for some generic dungeon diving. I've got some slimes here for Tales from the Red Dragon Inn. And yeah, a couple things back here. These are actually, what do you call it, bones from Reaper. But I heard on these that you almost don't necessarily want to prime them. I think it's mostly because, like, rattle can primer can kind of wreck bones, but I use my, like, urethane primer through the airbrush, so I think these are okay. I just kind of wanted to give them, you know, a little bit of something. I did the metallics on them, and those are ready to go pretty much for Resident Evil, as, like, you know, the ogre enemy from Resident Evil 4, and you know, kind of a generic worm kind of enemy. And I did paint some miniatures this year. I didn't do a video about these yet. I probably will when I feel like I really have my formula down. It took me actually a long time to reach these. And I'm still not 100% happy with them, but I think they're quite good. I really wanted something that was the old classic purple and blue Genestealer, and with the speed paints that I have, I don't have the new 2.0 speed paints, I have the 1.0 speed paints from Army Painter, and, you know, I did some mixing and messing around until I really got something that I thought was good. And even having done that, I still might adjust this a little bit because, you know, what I'm finding is that underpainting really makes the difference, I think, when I'm using this speed paints for me. I would say for anybody, but, you know, use your speed paints the way that you want. They're your speed paints. But, you know, in order to get some good definition and contrast, these certainly look good under the camera. I had my dudes here, but you can see it's not super consistent. And I think the contrast could maybe be a little better. There's a little finessing that I want to do on these guys, but I feel like they're 80-90% to where I want them. These also suffered from a little bit of, like, a variety of, like, it wasn't intentional underpainting, it was just I went through a few attempts, and so some of them ended up like different colors. It's fine. I think they look pretty good, but I'm gonna adjust them a little. Here is something, probably the thing I'm the most excited about this year. This was my excuse to start casting, basically recasting some miniatures. It might sound like kind of a dirty word, right? But I originally, like, owned the Genestealer expansion for Space Hulk. My buddy and I split the original Space Hulk from 1989, and yeah, basically he ended up buying Deathwing, I think, kind of on his own, and I got Genestealer on my own, right? So this is my copy of Genestealer back here. And for some reason, it has like 99% of its components except for the miniatures. I don't really know what happened to them. I did have like a missile launcher and stuff like that. But I'm like, I owned these. They're out of print. They're not making them anymore. And I would really like to complete my set of Genestealer the way that I had it when I was 12 years old, right? Or 13 or whatever, around in there. And yeah, so basically anything that I was missing, I reacquired. I learned how to like make silicone molds and mix resin and pour them into it and fiddle around with it a whole bunch and still get like a missing toe here and there. But I've 90% cleaned these up with a tiny bit of epoxy putty, I think, to just craft him a new tip of his toe and fill in some bubbles on the knee pads and things like that, just here and there. These are it. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are those models. This was a surprising amount of work. Like, here's how this looks. Trying to get, I some of these I got right on the sprue. I just tried to like get the whole sprue copied, which is a good idea, but it's kind of a pain in the butt because I used little plastic injection syringes to like try to squeeze resin into these, and I had to clamp them, and basically you just have failures. Like I was probably lucky if I got a 50% success rate on these when I was doing them. So half of it was just waste, and the other half is like not perfect, but it when I got it and I got to see, I'm like, this piece is gonna work. These, I'm able to do this. These are the original weapons. These are the original bodies from this set. Honestly, like, they're a little goofy looking, to be completely honest, but I just think they're so cool. Like, you don't see this anymore. Like, this is a conversion beamer. Like, you don't have like a chaos corrupted conversion beamer, or like a shoulder mounted missile launcher, or any of this stuff anymore. And it's what I kind of grew up with. So anyway, this is one of the big things that I did this year. You can see my setup here. I just have a tray, and I got a little scale, and I clamp these together, and you can see like a couple of the molds here, and some Legos that I bought that are specific for like building a little tray to make your silicone molds in and stuff. And it's not rocket science, right? Like, it's not, I wouldn't even call it hard necessarily. It's just a little fiddly, and you have to accept that like you're gonna get some failures, and it's a little time consuming. Okay, next up. So yeah, this spot is pretty darn cool because this is, well, so we've got some Adeptus Mechanicus stuff here. My buddy, for something, my birthday maybe, or maybe it was Christmas last year, I think he got, because he has brothers who are also into Warhammer, so he tries to like coordinate, I feel like, getting folks into games sometimes. So his current game that he wanted to get everybody into was Adeptus Mechanicus. And I don't have necessarily like a particular affinity for Titans in Warhammer, but for whatever reason, like, I read through the rules for Adeptus Titanicus. I put my model together. I printed out some weapons for it. I kind of forget why. Also found an STL that I could use to print out a few more Warhound Titans, so I don't have to, pay the horrendous Warhammer tax to get them legitimately. And like, we tried out a game of this, right? Because this isn't really like the game that I was like, hey, I wanna play this. My buddy was just like, hey, we should play this. I'm like, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And it's surprisingly fun. You can see here, we tried out a game just with like 2 Warhound Titans each, and the rules are a little crunchy. But really, I don't mind it. In fact, it's probably one of the most fun games that I've played from Games Workshop. Rolling on this catastrophic damage table for like Adeptus Titanicus is so much fun. You roll and your mech stumbles, and it can crash into like another mech, or it can like fall and just like shoot its weapons, right? And it's good. Space Marines. These are really kind of old school Space Hulk Space Marines. Obviously, again, this was an STL. I got this because, again, like we had all this stuff when we were kids, and like I don't have, the Space Marines to go with Space Hulk, right? I actually have our original copy of Space Hulk. I think we got rid of the box ultimately, unfortunately, or like it got lost over the years. But I have pretty much like 99% of the tiles, the rules, the markers, and all that stuff. And I just don't have the Space Marines for it. So this is an STL that I found. It's 2 squads of Space Marines. I'm going to paint these up as Blood Angels, just so I can, play the game either with my buddy when he's down, or with my other buddies. If somebody wants to play Space Hulk, I want to be kind of set up to actually play Space Hulk. He might actually have our original Space Marine models, but I kind of wanted some of my own. Do not ask me where to get these STLs. I think as soon as I got them, like, the person took them down. So I don't know. You might just be out of luck on those. I want to say it's the Kev Adams orcs that I got. They were the ones. They were casts from Heartbreaker miniatures, I think. But I got a whole set of them, and I did assemble them and paint them. Here's a picture of all of those a little more clearly instead of like in that pile of stuff. These are my old orcs that I painted when I was a teenager. But yeah, so these are the ones that are going to kind of go along with those. They're not exactly the same style, but I really like them. And so I was cautioned a little bit about this set. For one, it's cheap, which is really good. I really liked the price of them, and I like the sculpts. I was warned that they, this kind of resin, I guess, that they used is like it doesn't hold primer really well. So I kind of went into it knowing that that might be an issue. And basically what I did is I washed these in green stuff. Because after the first soak, I went ahead and primed them a bit, and the primer was beating up on the surface a bit. I was like, oh, this really is a thing. So I soaked them in green stuff again, scrubbed them with a toothbrush really well, and it still kind of beat it up on the surface. So this is that urethane primer that I used there. It's from Vallejo, white urethane primer. So basically what I ended up doing was doing about 2 or 3 coats of the primer, which more or less got it, well. You can see here, I think this is painted silver, so it might not be, this might be silver more than it is, the primer not sticking well, but there's like a little bits of the crevices. Maybe the primer didn't get in there super duper well. It's pretty good though. I think these are going to paint up fine, right? And it's one of those things, it's a little borderline, because it's like, if I just got these and maybe they cost a little more, or they weren't these cool Kev Adams sculpts that I like, I might have been a little disappointed, right? That, because I also had to do like a lot of cleanup work on these, but I think I actually feel quite positive about these, because once I did the cleanup, and aside from the primer being like a little fiddly, these look great. I think they're gonna paint up well, and they were quite affordable. So all of those things in consideration, I'm really quite excited about these and very happy with them. So this year I also I 3D printed some dudes here for my Genestealer cults. My buddy got me a really cool sprue. It's like I don't know what it was, a conversion sprue maybe for guard to Genestealer cults. And basically it's Genestealer cult heads. And I think he had also gifted me like a few weapons. They came from the acolytes set. It was like some shotguns, because those were supposed to be good for the acolytes, and like the acolytes that I had are all from Deathwatch Overkill, and they didn't come with like the same options that you get in a set of acolytes. So yeah, so anyway, I had those, and I'm like, I have a 3D printer, so what if I printed myself out some custom weapons and custom bodies that I can basically like put those heads and Genestealer bits with, to make some cool Genestealers. So you can see these guys here. This was sort of the process on that. I think it came out really well. You can see the parts that are 3D printed. You know, this dude's backpack, the whole body for this guy, but the head, it's an official head from that sprue, official arms and gun, which is sort of comically proportioned here, but you know, that's kind of how these models are. It actually looks pretty good. I think these guys will look nice when they're painted up. I kind of had to like fashion my own flamer here from, you know, I think this was an auto gun, and you know, this resin, you can see here where it chipped a little bit when I cut this. It's not kind of ideal to work with, but also I you know, I think a little putty in here and you're not going to know the difference on this. I used a piece of electrical wire to basically connect to the backpack to the flamer, and yeah, I mean, I think these turned out really well. They're really cool. You know, I 3D printed some elves. Again, this is just a small set. It's really so that I can slot them into a dungeon crawling game. I bought a set of really, you know, what I thought were these really cool elves. I think they came with one bow guy, and I don't know, I just copied the bow guy so I could have more bows. And then we had some cool sword guys and gals. One free crossbow gal that I grabbed. Kind of weirdly, the last thing is right in the middle here. Those Resident Evil miniatures. So I have Resident Evil 2, the board game, I have Resident Evil 3, the board game, and I have Resident Evil 1, the board game. That is the order in which they were released. I did not kickstart any of them, but I did get them kind of after the Kickstarter, and I did get some reasonable deals on them, and some of the stuff I had to like scrounge up on eBay and whatnot, but I think it worked out pretty well. You can see here like cool zombie dog. These are like plastic zombies. A big, you know, Resident Evil mutant monster dude. You know, here's like a big tyrant kind of, you know, well, I guess this was from Resident Evil 2, so it's like you know, a version of Birkin. It's an official Resident Evil board game with miniatures. It plays exactly like I wanted a Resident Evil board game to play. I think that's kind of why I got all of the sets, because I played a little bit of Resident Evil 2 solo. Actually, I played it with a buddy too, and I'm like, this is super cool. And did I shrink down my pile of shame? No, I added to it significantly. But you know, I think with the amount of games that I have and the amount of games I'm going to be able to play with these miniatures, I've pretty much achieved my goal of like getting myself to a place where I can play like a wide range of games. I think it's going to be really fun. You know, Space Hulk, that Last Days zombie skirmish game, the Resident Evil games, you know, fantasy dungeon dives, Tales from the Red Dragon Inn specifically. You know, I can play Kill Team with my buddy, Adeptus Titanicus with my buddy, and all of that. So I'm just, you know, I'm happy. I went crazy a little bit 3D printing stuff. I really am enjoying having a Resin 3D printer. I think it's really cool, and I think it's no small feat that I got so many miniatures primed and ready to go. So hopefully 2025 is going to be my year of like painting miniatures. So we'll see how it goes. I think this is a really long video, so if you stuck around, thank you so much. And yeah, please, like this. If you like it, go ahead and comment. If you have any comments on what you would like to see maybe painted, in the 2025, maybe I'll focus a little bit on that. If you want to see more about my Genestealer pure strains, or Space Hulk stuff, Chaos Marines, zombies, whatever it is. And I hope you'll catch up with me next time. All right, take care, everybody.